Okay. It is 12:47. We are back from our break. We are going to continue with the agenda. The next agenda item is the 1:30 discussion item, which is review of the Index 502 and PCN changes that have been made by TDOC since our last meeting in January. And part of that discussion will be a consideration of an IDOB specific Class A sanctioned matrix, and that discussion will be led by our chairman, Jerry Bassbinder. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. As everyone knows, Director Stahl and I met with the commissioner back in January, and one of the was actually when we were going over our end of the year report with the commissioner. One of the things that was recommended was to restructure the disciplinary matrix and stair stepping. Well, Commissioner Linda Thomas was actually, that was something that she had been working on. So when Director Stahl and I were talking, they said, well, there's several challenges, and if we can get together, we can get everything you want implemented by February the 1st. So I've got to give credit to Director Stahl because he had less than basically 2 weeks to get them all of the paperwork as far as setting up. We are now officially in TDOC's policy. They put it in policy the last day of January. All the inmates' handbooks reflect that the Inmate Disciplinary Oversight Board is in existence. There is an appeal process that is explained to them. And basically, TDOC took Mike Stahl's words verbatim and just adopted them into the policy. There's no TDOC wording. It's Director Stahl's wording, and they put it into the policy. They said it looked great. So, TDOC did what they said they could do, and they implemented this new policy that has started on February the 1st of this year. The thing about this matrix versus the old matrix, there's no zeros, period. If it's your first Class A infraction, you're going to lose 1 to 2 months. If you have a prior Class A infraction, and another one, you're going to lose 3 to 4 months. If you've got 2 prior, it jumps 5 to 8. And if you've got 3 priors, you're looking at 9 to 12. So a lot of these people, much of the ones that y'all have brought up today that had the multiple, like Ms. Bertholz had 3, that would put that inmate on this new policy to lose 9 to 12 months. The same thing with Mr. Franks and Mr. Stearns cases. They have put, and it's in their code, rape, sexual battery, indecent exposure, homicide, assault on staff with serious injury, assault on inmate with serious injury, escape will incur up to 24 months allowance. Serious bodily injury can go up to 60 months. So the new matrix is set in policy. I can tell you by just looking at some of the prisons that have already had D boards in February. It may be in policy, but they're not looking at it that way. The commissioner's office is working on that, but it's basically black and white. They have taken out the ability to just let something fall off of the disciplinary. There's no more 14 days, they didn't do anything, it disappeared. They have discontinued that function on Thomas, and for something to be dismissed, they have to justify in there why it was dismissed. Now, so we're not going to see any more just fall offs like we used to see. And that's pretty much it. All of our paperwork is in the TDOC manual. Uh, we have had one person already appeal. It's one of Mr. Sharon's cases.
Is that really pertinent?
Fingers.
But, you know, by the cases that I see, and I'm glad Dr. Harpo said that she caught that there was 2,200, inmates that were written up last year. I guess during the hearing yesterday, it must have been one.
That was the number that was
Yeah.
given out by chief of staff.
That, you know, I said that roughly, I felt like that we were dealing with less than 20% of the prison population, and that pretty well fit into the, synopsis for yesterday. So by this matrix, there's going to be a lot of sentence extensions for the people that are continuously, doing, wrong in the prison, which is a small majority of the active inmates. But, it goes into effect. It's already in effect. So, we're gonna have, this first month is gonna be challenging. Like Bledsoe, usually their first offense, no matter what, is 3 months. Well, we may have to give some time back, but then if Bledsoe only gave 3 months for the second offense, you know, they're gonna be in line, or it could go up. So there's gonna be a lot more, critical looking at each incident, and seeing what their priors are for the February.
Right.
And we may need to have a workshop sometime in the near future where we can either do it in person or Teams or whatever, to go over all of us, kind of sit down and just like we did when we first got homeless, and kind of feel out how it's gonna be with this new matrix.
Well, do we want to have a discussion and possible vote on, to this point, we've been utilizing the old matrix for decisions regarding particular incidents.
Yes.
Do we want to have a discussion about, our own matrix, or adopting this new matrix that TDOC uses into our decision making?
Well, my thoughts on that, and that's totally up to the board. In our end of the year report, one of our suggestions was to work with TDOC to develop a new matrix stair step. And this is definitely a stair step matrix. It's going to be, it's going to be tough on inmates that are not following the rules and regulations. I feel like that we need to at least, look at it for 6 months. I think we're going to see a huge difference in the amount of days taken away. That's up, whatever the board thinks. But TDOC, took everything that, you know, we talked to them about as far as the end of the year, and did it. So we've got that. My motion would be that, we would try it, adopt it, which I know some deliberation or question about it, but, to me, it's solid. It's going to be it's going to be done.
So is that a motion?
Yes, sir. I'd make a motion that we adopt the new matrix TDOC has put together, that was put together basically with all recommendations of stair steppers, and give it a try.
And utilize it for the incidents that we vote on?
Use it starting on February incidents, and to me, it's in black and white, and that's how we should follow it.
A second.
Would that be indefinite, or would that be, is there a time period?
I would feel, and again, it's up to the board. I think, you know, look how many months it took us to get used to this. I would think it would take, to really see the findings, 6 months would be a reasonable, time to use it and see what everybody thought as far as how many months were taken away over that period, basically half the year.
Okay, so the motion is that the board adopt the new TDOC sanctions matrix for a period of 6 months to utilize for incidents beginning February 1st through the next 6 months of 2025. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That clarification, incidents occurred or incidents brought forward?
Incidents that occur, from February.
February 1st. So if we, in March, bring a January case, that's old matrix.
Right, the old matrix.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, and I expect to have some discussion on this, so I'll open it up for discussion now. Anybody would like to start? Mr. Carpus?
So if I could ask you to share on the screen, the one handout that I sent, and it's in each board member's book. It basically puts, the old matrix on the same, page with the new matrix, so we can kind of look at them. And Chairman Bansbinder, if I could ask you to clarify one of your comments, when you were talking about things being put in to some of the TDOC documents, am I correct that that includes information about how an offender can appeal and reach the board, and that the board in fact has reviewed responsibilities over it? So that they know now when they go to a disciplinary, what they're being told still is going to be reviewed by this. So that's more or less.
Right,
what's-
that's on, a lot of the prisons have tablets, it's been included in the tablets, a lot of them still have the inmate handbook, so they put a, edited appendix in there, but all of the prisoners have received and they know how to appeal it. Plus, when the director, sends out, the disciplinary, when we change the disciplinary and the inmates notified, he's also putting an appeals form in there.
And my second question, and this has to do with the notation that's under the new matrix that says finding of guilt for offenses, Tennessee Code 39. Sorry, 16.
Big enough.
202. Rape, sexual battery, indecent exposure, homicide, assault on staff, serious injury, ASW, assault on inmate, serious injury, AOW, escape, will incur up to 24 months of removal. Does the phrase finding of guilt for offenses and naming that Tennessee code mean that they have to be tried, they have to be prosecuted and tried, and once convicted, then those 24 months?
It's my understanding, and I'm not an attorney, as Quantel says, I don't even play one on television. But it's my understanding that that would still be a civil process through the D board, that, the prison institutional investigator would have to refer it to the outside counsel district attorney, which brings up another, there is a bill, that is currently in the legislation that says that 14 new district attorneys will be assigned to the districts that have prisons, along with a additional criminal investigator to be dedicated as the prosecuting attorney for the prisons, which I think if that passes, we'll see a lot more of the cases going through the court.
So to my point, what I've snipped here is the top of the worksheet that is attached to the policy that the D boards are supposed to begin or would have begun using. After the commissioner signed it January 30th, this would have gone into effect. How are the D board people to read it? Are they to read that statement as saying that they can take 24 months? Or are they to read that statement saying as I'm reading it, because to me, it appears that what it's saying is that if this person, in addition to whatever you do in the deed board, is criminally convicted of any of these, then they're going to lose 24 months. But that's not giving the deed board permission to take 24 months for those offenses. Am I reading that correctly or incorrectly?
I couldn't answer that, it would be an opinion, and I don't know. I don't really know that.
Well, but obviously deed boards have been using this. This is February 26th. They've been using this since February 1st. And this is another instance where knowing how deed boards being trained and having their training documents would help us decipher and be able to make a reasoned decision as to whether or not this new matrix, how this new matrix would even work. So I'm stumped on that bottom part. But let me say this, and I don't mean this to be taken as anything harsh or critical. I'm going to make an observation. And I make this observation because, for 30-something years, I've done research. This is not an evidence-based created matrix. This is not even a best practice that's accepted across correctional states. I recognize that it's a new creation, and I applaud the effort that went into creating it. But my personal preference is always that matrices are based on evidence that substantiates and provides reason and justification for why those particular numbers are patterned in the way that they are. I understand one of the concerns, and when we look at the old matrix above it, the range given available was if you came with a Class A and you had no priors, the D board could take between 0 and 9 months from you. But when I look at the new matrix, the D board now has to take less time from them. Because the new matrix says if you come with a Class A and you have no priors, they can only take 1 to 2 months. So I might agree that if the D boards actually are have fidelity to the expectation of the matrix as stated, we'll see a lot more 1 and 2 months. But what I'm concerned about is that if somebody comes and they haven't ever done it before, but it can still be really serious, the most you can take is 2 months. The old matrix, we can take 9 months. So I'm not comfortable with the notion of watering down what sentence credits can be removed. And that same concern goes across the board, because if you come with 1 prior in the old matrix, you can take 12 months. In the new matrix, you can only take 3 to 4 months. 2 or more. In the old matrix, you can take up to 15 months. Here, if you have 2, can't take more than 8 months. If you have 3, I can't take more than 12 months. I still haven't even gotten up to the 15 months of the old matrix. So I'm concerned about adopting a matrix that actually takes fewer sentence credits for Class A.
I understand what you're talking about, but by reviewing most of the cases, we find that because the D board has the option of 0 to 9, 0 to 12, 0 to 15, it's most of them opt for 0.
I agree. I've had that same observation, but I don't think the solution or the cure is to reduce the amount of sentence credit that we can take.
Sorry, I'm just getting up. Like, just like in the teams meet. So whenever you're ready for me, I put my hand.
And I'll come to you shortly. Let me just make a couple of other points. Certainly, and you all know from conversations with me at the December meeting, I've presented the opinion that the board has the statutory authority to create its own matrix. That certainly TDOC can and has created a matrix. And that's within their authority, but I think we as a board also have authority to create our own matrix or to in some way enhance, tweak, modify what it is that they have now signed into policy as of January 30th. So I guess I'm interested in the pleasure of the board. Do we want to consider, because the proposal is that we adopt the new matrix? Clearly, my position is that to do so will actually result in fewer sentence credits being taken for Class A's in comparison to the old matrix. And I agree with Chairman Bassbinder that observationally, a lot of D boards in the past, because zero was possible, they opted for zero, and I agree. But certainly one of the options could be to remove the zero and to change the zero to anything we want it to be. But at a minimum, I'm uncomfortable with us moving away from 9, 12, and 15 to something that's 2, 4, 8, and 12. That's me in a nutshell. Ms. Murtaugh.
But may I ask a quick question? It's not a comment. At the very top where it says number of occurrences, loss of time less than or equal to 18 months. What does that mean? Does that mean we could take
In the
up to
past.
18 months?
In the past, the record for
That's
18 months.
Review. That's the review. That was wondered which time. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna way back to the question that you asked Jerry about that. Can you repeat to me your question about the finding of guilt of offenses, the footnote? What was your question to Jerry? Like if that's a thing they have to do? What was
So
your?
that's been found
I asked
guilty
if they had
before
to-
by court.
Why is the TCA there? Is it there? It says finding of guilt.
Okay, so I've pulled the TCA, the criminal code, because that's 39, so it's a criminal code. I pulled it, and basically what it's saying is that all of those offenses are to be referred to the prosecutors, which then falls in line with HB 706, right? HB, not SB. HB 706, which is trying to allot additional ADAs to handle these cases, right? Because we've got this new footnote in here. So if this gets referred out, will incur. Will in legal terms is must. Okay? That is that it will happen. So any one of those, take your 1 to 2, add 24. So it's 25 to 27 months. Okay? So it will, if they're found guilty on the outside, but they're really inside, but you know what I mean. If they're found guilty in a court of law, in a criminal court of law, then it's additional 24 months. Okay, for any one of those, which falls in line with what you're saying needs to happen, right? You want those big numbers, you're going to get them quick. And also, if they fail to refer it to a prosecutor, that's a Class A misdemeanor. So this is you better do it or you're going to incur criminal charges. Okay, so I think that with HB 706 on the floor, I think with this new additional matrix that has what appears to be smaller numbers, but if it's a prior Class A that's not rape, that's not sexual battery, that's not indecent exposure, that's not homicide, assault on a sick, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the more severe violent crimes or sex-based crimes, then we're looking at 1 to 2 months. But otherwise, they're referring it out to a prosecutor. It's in the statute. Okay, so and we all know, especially with our private prisons, right, our core civic, perhaps they're not going to follow the rules. But I think to Dale's point a couple of meetings ago, or Jerry's point today, we need to give them a minute to, let's see if this works, right? There's this new matrix with this new extra requirement for these more severe violent sex-based crimes. So I'm going to go, because of that caveat at the bottom, that footnote, that TCA 3916-202. I'm gonna go with Jerry, like 6 months, and then in 6 months, let's revisit it and see if it's working.
And we have a number of people who want to talk, so I have Mr. Lindsay, Mr. Carr, and then we'll go to Mr. Frank. Mr. Lindsay.
My question was answered. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I'm almost with Dale. When you wait that long, a lot what you gonna say, what's said. What I want to say, Jerry, did you say this matrix was created verbatim on Michael Stahl's work?
What they put into the inmate policies are verbatim with what Director Stahl sent to TDOC that we felt was needed as far as notifying.
Okay.
But
not I'm the clarity guy, sorry. I always come back.
So they created this there, the amount of months. is
Yes,
there.
yes.
Okay.
This is their creation.
This is their creation. The information in the handbook was put in by us.
So I want to ask the board, I want to, feel the pulse of the board. If we adopt this new matrix, which I see, it takes something. It starts with something. It goes from, in the beginning, you would get no. Now this new matrix, you have to get something. Oh, that's point A. Going to Dr. Corporal over here, you do lose something on the other end, but it is some form of a step forward. And if you take your position, you can see a step backward. What I want to ask the board, if we adopt this new matrix for 6 months, or 3 months, permanently, did we provide oversight? Or did they give us a playbook to provide, to oversee the oversight? Does it take the oversight out of what we do if we adopt their matrix? Just a question. It's not a statement. I just really want the clarity from you guys.
Well, we'll hold that out there. Let's hear from Mr.
I
Frank.
was gonna say, practically speaking, doing these cases for as long as I've done them and people here have done them, the amount of time that we're gonna be taking is gonna be incredibly increased. I mean, I don't think, and Quantel mentioned it, they're taking something. They were utilizing zeros 95% of the time. That's what was the problem. And the bad, let's say the bad actors, you're going back 18 months. You're going to start, what we're going to see off the bat from just Dale and I looked at a case, they're going to be at 9 to 12 months off the bat because there's no grace period. And so once we're going through cases and they have an RAA or a DSO or a RTP, by their matrix, we have to take 9 to 12 months. The amount of time I would say is going to be, we're going to have, from what I'm seeing, I know Morgan's not following it and Bledsoe's not following it. They just do 3 months for everything. You could have 9 previous days and it's 3 months. They're going to be at 9 months. We're going to have to even be, the one that we've always bragged about, we're going to have to be changing a lot of Bledsoe's to get them in line with what the commissioner's trying to do here. I just think that we need to give this a chance because I go back to the zero was the most utilized of all of them for drugs, phones, knives. A lot of times it was zeros. And so we're going to be seeing, I think a lot of the ones that we're trying to keep in prison are going to be in the 9 to 12 range off the start.
But I'll be honest, I don't like 10 to 12 months. Y'all see how I think today. And there are a lot of those that have years of credit that I would like to take 15 or more. I mean, I would have recommended higher also. Like, why are they entitled to keep all that credit when they're holding their CO with the SPIS or, the 17? And I know you're going to say, well, under those certain, well, we got, there's more, but hold on, let me finish. This is, we all know how the court system works. Assuming they do get referred, assuming those cases get indicted, assuming they get handled and not dismissed or, run concurrent with the time that they were already serving, which I've done myself, seen that a million times. That takes years. So are we gonna keep track of all these, go back and check after they've made their way through the court system? I totally appreciate wanting to work with TVOC and that we had input into this. So I don't dismiss your point of view, but I think Mary has really good too.
Okay, let's go to Dr. Carpos. I think he has something to say. Then we'll go to Ms. Murtaugh, and then we'll go to Mr.
So for me, there's really 2 issues here. And it really speaks to what Brother Lindsay said and to Ms. Wiseman as well. Public safety is at the core of why we're created. And the notion of ensuring that people who are behaving in a way that's destructive, violent, and detrimental inside the facility are signaling that this is what you can expect when they come out. And any sentence credits that have been accrued are that many more days closer to coming out. So for me, when someone's signaling, I'm a danger here, I'm uncomfortable with them retaining weeks, months, years of sentence credits. I don't feel that they have to commit a homicide more than once, twice, to be able to take all their sentence credits. For me, if you kill somebody in prison, if you seriously assault, stab, or an offender in prison, I don't want you 1 minute closer out the door. Now, I recognize that that may seem more time than others are comfortable with, but on its face, at its most, we're only looking at 24 months for somebody who raped or killed somebody. If they're sitting there and they have 5 or 6 years of credits, remember, we're here because of the ad hoc committee and Fletcher.
I thought it was 60.
Okay, so hold on, let me jump in really quickly because we have some misinformation on the floor.
Well, let's, let.
Okay, okay, no,
and we're
I thought
going
you
to
was
Ms.
done. I thought you was done. No, it's fine. Let her
I'm
finish.
coming to the 60 months and I understand that, but it's not on the worksheet for those doing the disciplinaries. The people who are doing the disciplinaries up here on this part that we're looking at. So I wanted to say something, and I'll yield the floor because I don't want to monopolize all the time. Mr. Frank brought up, and you're absolutely correct. We have seen 90 to 95% where they go for the zero. They had a matrix and they went for the zero. Giving them a new matrix doesn't make them do whatever you might want them to do. Right? They're employees of the Department of Corrections. We are a separate oversight board that has to take into consideration how the behavior, and in some cases, the repeated and persistent behavior signals clearly this person is not safe for release. And the only authority we have is to take those sentence credits and not allow them to leave any sooner. And so I'm not proposing personally what my opinion might be about how to change this matrix, but I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of moving to a matrix that in my mind is less than the 9, 12, 15. And to Ms. Weissman's point, if it was up to me, it would be something more like 12, 24, 36. No, I'm done.
Okay, I appreciate that. I've been asked to share a different screen, so I'm gonna pull this one down. While I'm doing that, Ms. Murtaugh, you want to go?
Okay, so what Dr. Carpus has provided in her handout is the top portion. So the tab before the last tab has our new matrix in it. Incomplete. This is what DOC is going off of, right? This is what was put into their stuff. So in reading it, go down, like, so if there are extended release, if they extend release eligibility dates, okay? And there's different ones, escape. Oh wait, there's assault and assault. So they're gonna add 2 years, add 5 years. Then there's a mandatory punitive segregation section. They're changing how they handle that part of it, right? And I know we don't look necessarily at that, but it's part of the picture, right? Then there's loss of visitation for some stuff, right? And then there's additional, like if you have a drug charge and also you got a cell phone, you don't get social visits for three months, right? They're looking, that's an issue that we have with cell phones and drugs in the system, okay? And then keep going. And the last section, and I think, Ms. Wiseman, I think this speaks to you because I as, you know, former prosecutors, like, wait, we get very frustrated being confined by the law. In there, it says that an imposition of a harsher penalty must be sustained only if the offense involved a death, assault or injury to an employee. It doesn't even say serious injury. It says assault or injury. So like the case that Sharon had today, it was categorized as minor injury. We still could have taken more because it doesn't signify between serious or minor, right? It just says injury. In a court of law, injury is just like a mere scratch. Okay? In a criminal court of law, I can scratch you if you have an injury. And then et cetera, right? So those situations where we feel like our conscience has been shocked, right? And we're like, this is not okay, right? For whatever reason, each of us using our own discretion, there's a section in there that says, yo, bring it in. Bring it in. If they killed somebody, if they assaulted somebody, if they injured somebody, right? Here we go. Or just by overwhelming or substantial reason, right? There's your caveat. If you can have an overwhelming or substantial reason that you can articulate, you want to take all his good time? Dr. Karpos, according to this sheet that is now being followed within TDOC that we're proposing perhaps adopting for at least the next 6 months, there's your caveat. You want to take all their good time? Articulate it in an overwhelming or substantial reason, and there you can. So I don't know where we're at.
And I know you were addressed directly, Dr. Karpos, but I did want to give Ms. Lindsay, you got a comment, and then we'll go to Ms. Weiss.
I yield, Dr. Karpos.
Okay, well, okay.
Okay. I may have a different perspective because I think I have a more harsh outlook on some of these. I understand what you're saying. However, those number one, like our mandate is to review the time taken. So with all due respect, I don't really care about the other sanctions they get. I mean, I appreciate.
No, you're not. No, I agree.
So I hear you. However, number two, I think if you got that record of you're serving time for violent crimes or serious crimes, if you with a bad write-up record, or even not even a bad write-up record, but a bad incident, whether it's assault or fentanyl or a cell phone, well, we all know why we have cell phones in there. I mean, like, I still think we should take as much time as we possibly can, and I don't like the idea of them being limited to 12 months. Like several of mine today, I was like, 15 months. He's got 4.5 years credit. He's serving time for murder too. Why would it only take 6 months or 12 months when I can take? And I feel like that's our job. So, I mean, I understand what you guys are saying. And like I said, maybe I'm just too hardcore, but that's how I feel.
Okay. We have not heard from a few people. We'll get back to you, Dr. Karpos. I know, Mr. Carr, did you have anything? You haven't had an opportunity, Mr. Sharon?
I think we're all hardcore. I don't think you're by yourself. I think I think we all want violent. I mean, we understand why.
I'm saying by that, I mean, like, I'm not
No.
satisfied with 12.
Yeah, right. No, I'm with you. I mean, if we
So
could
why
do
would
away
we
with good
limit
credit
ourselves to that?
altogether, I'd love that.
No, and I would love it too, but I think we have that opportunity. If I say this guy, he's a violent offender, right? Like he's in on murder 1, he's in on murder 2, and now he's stabbing another inmate,
Okay,
right?
like, really stabbing. Let's just say he spit on his CO or
What?
his fentanyl. Like, that's not going to fall under these. And I would like to talk to somebody from TDOC and find out exactly what that means when they say, you know, adding on 3 years to sentence expiration date. Because I know what Jerry was saying earlier, but that's different from taking away their time. And our job is to take away their time. Why would we limit ourselves to taking away?
I think TDOC's answer would be the stair step, right? And that's coming from
I just think the
Linda.
range should be high.
Well, and that's right. Well, that's coming from Linda. If we're capable, if we have the ability, because when they earn days, like they're not earning 30, when they earn a month of credit, it's not 30 days of credit, right? It's maybe 8 days of credit or whatever it is.
Right.
So if our ranges are higher, TDOC's answer would be, and I can see where I'm with you. No, I'm with you on I would love to take all the time, every time, because you can't act right for me to stay where you're at. But if we're able to take so much, then what is there left to take? Because if we could take up to 15 months, 24 months, 36 months, or whatever we feel like taking that day, then eventually those offenders, like, what do they have to lose? Because you've already taken everything.
I personally always look at how much time they have.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know, because I didn't understand that. But I mean, to answer your question, if he only has 3 years credit, I'm not going to recommend taking 36 months, but I would like.
Okay.
to take 18 months.
Okay.
You know, like.
No, no,
Again,
okay,
I mean,
no,
I'm
no,
not
that makes
saying
sense.
everybody has to look at it the way I look at it. That's
Sure.
not what I'm saying.
No, and that would make sense. That would make sense if that's how you looked at
We
it.
have three people. We have Mr. Frank, Mr. Bassfider, and Dr. Carpos. Mr. Frank, do you want to go? And then Dr. Carpos?
Go ahead,
you wanna
Jerry.
go? And then,
Or Mayor.
okay, well, you've been chairman. Go ahead.
I was just going to let Ms. Wiseman know, looking at your case, homeless number 466614, that had 20 months of credit. Under this new matrix, he would have been 3 years in the hole. He would have already had a sentence extension of 3 years on his credits under this new matrix with the prior amount of 80s. So he would have been, where he had 20 months credit, he would have had 36 months negative credit. So if he was
How does that
serving
work?
a,
Like how would, I mean, walk me through how you got there.
I'm looking at his prior, class A's in the 18-month time range, and he's got got 9 class A's.
Okay.
So he would have had that, he would have been 5 over and.
So you're saying I'd take them to 12?
Technically would have had more years.
If he would have been under this matrix at the time, you're saying
He would have been in the whole 3 years.
But
he
how
would
did
have
you get there, like
56 months to
12 months?
12 months per incident, because once he got to that fourth one, it's 12 months, 12 months, 12 months.
Right.
So they would have done the sentence extension, which the maximum sentence extension by law that they can do is 5 years. And in reviewing, I've already seen cases that 20 year at 100%, they've already got 60 months sentence extension, so they're not eligible to.
For that
even do
reason,
this.
because
Yeah,
they were taking away time that they hadn't accrued.
exactly. So they're doing 25 years at 100%. They're not getting good time out of that.
Dr. Carpos?
So, just a couple of things. Sentence credits aside, correctional administrators have a tremendous amount of tools at their disposal. Commissary, rec time, telephone privilege, visitation, same time. We're not touching that. None of that is for us. This is the only thing that's for us. So having worked in prison for 5 years, I can say a lot of times those daily things of being able to go to commissary and things like that are more motivational than the sentence credit. So I don't feel that we're putting the Department of Corrections in a position where even if we did take all the time away, that they don't have any tools. They have lots of tools left. So that. Just to talk about something Brother Fontel and I have talked about several times, is the philosophy that sentence credits are about you earning through good behavior. And being able to see the sentence credits being awarded on the basis of good behavior. And, that would be motivational to somebody in terms of whether they hold on to them and behave versus not behaving. But let me propose something that might be a good compromise for all of us. I can certainly see why many board members are comfortable with this matrix, and I've expressed why perhaps I'm not. If we could propose that to the extent that board members want to bring their cases within the context of this new matrix, they're certainly free to do so. But for those of us who would like to propose different sentence removal, that we not be inhibited from those removals simply on the basis that, well, we agreed to the matrix. So I guess the proposal would be that we acknowledge the existence of the Department of Corrections new matrix And that in no way constrains individual board members from bringing to the board and recommending whatever they see as appropriate, given the individual circumstances of the person, their priors, and what they are now before us for doing.
I want to speak to a lot of what Murtaugh said. Considering no visitation, commissary is currency, and those type of places. Going back to Lee Frank, it gives us something where majority of the time it was nothing. But I am weary if we go in for the juggler every time and remove hope. You don't want a group of hopeless people.
How does that affect the government?
Go ahead, Sharon. Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, how does that affect the corrections officer?
So it affects the danger when you have someone that just made a mistake, just got caught, whatever. I love what you said. We don't have to go to the extreme. It can be minor. But if you do come in and you take all the time at one time, we can't just be creating a melting pot of oil and just, I have nothing else to hope for. So do we want to do, I think we're all, like you said, I think everybody's tough, no nonsense, but do we want to remove all hope? There is things that do affect inmates of no visitation. The restrictions does take place, no commissary, being in segregation. And then I agree with Betsy Wiseman, I agree, Doctor, does this, we're stuck at 12 months. So how do we find something that works? I'm not mad if we adopt this matrix because I go back to Lee Frank. When we started, it was 0, and that's the majority of what it was. So we get something. A ship doesn't turn instant. Ask the people on top 10. Sometimes you have to just slowly start turning it. This is turning the ship. Do we take it for 180 days, revisit it? Do we take it for 90 days? Is it something we table now? Or what do we do with it? Is there a compromise? And that's what I want to, I don't want to take everything at one time, but I don't want to let bad actors off the hook. But I don't want to endanger correction officers because we removed hope. And now you have a guy that's doing 3 to 6, not caring anymore. The lifers already show they don't care. They're manipulating most of the 5 to 10ers, the 24 months. The lifers are life. And what can happen when you have the lifers not caring, you have what you call foot soldiers doing dirty work. That comes in with 36 months, but don't leave because of systems and there's no compromises in rooms like this. I'm not speaking from experience or anything. I'm ready, Dale. But
I'm sorry.
it's fine. So I just want us to be careful with quote unquote having our version of filibustering one another. Let's find something. Let's find something because we'll leave and like we ripped hope. We will leave and say we got it. And we just heard it when we got nothing. So I just want to encourage the board. Let's leave with something.
We should be a picture.
Wait.
Well, do we have anyone else? We're still in discussion.
I was just, and I mean, I understand what you're saying. There is something to do about correctional officers. I would still like to adopt this, and it could be 3 months or it could be 6 months. We're totally, which we're not consumed, but ASOs and assaults. These inmates are gonna, if you're wanting time, to me, an RAA is very serious to me, or a DRS. Because that tells me you're an addict. When you walk out, you're still an addict. Mm-hmm. They're going to be taken where they never take time. I mean, you guys, if you do this, you see this. If this is this guy's 4th DSO, he's losing 9 to 12 months, whereas they used to lose anything. I think we're so focused, and I don't mean that in a bad way, which all the cases I usually bring are ASOs, but these guys are not just losing time for the big stuff. They're losing time for all these things. The ones that just absolutely refuse to follow the rules, whether it be indecent or think about like the knife stuff that we usually see a month.
Right.
If they've got knife after knife, they're losing 12 months after 12 months. And after 3 months, this guy's lost 3 years of time. I mean, I think that we maybe forget all the other incidents besides the really serious assaults, the rapes, the homicides. I mean, 95% of them are probably not those things. A lot of them are drugs, a lot of them are phones, a lot of weapons. And they're going to be losing 9 to 12 months on a weapon every time instead of us having to come take. I mean, that's my thing is if we think that, okay, it's not too harsh or it's not harsh enough, maybe we give it, I think we give it a shot. And I would even say if 6 is too much, we give it 3 months from the February cases through May or June. And then we come back and have a serious, whether we come together in Nashville and have just a sit down, how is it working? And then we can have, look, we can be making that, and if we're like, they just refuse to do this, let's do our own thing. I'll be for that. I just think that they really did. I feel empowered that TDOC, and maybe they were going to do it anyway, but I think we pushed them into getting rid of the zero, which was the main thing that I just blew. It made me pull my hair out. I'm like, this guy's got 8 A's, all different things, and you keep giving him punitive, and it's just, he doesn't care because he knows you're probably going to give him a 0. And I think even if you hit him, the guys that get the first, gosh, I lost 2 months off that first one. Maybe it goes, hey, these guys are serious, and I'm going to correct my behavior. That's what I think. And I know it starts low, but after you get your 4th A, and a lot of it, and we talked to Richard, and we were like, is there any grace period in this? Like, starting now? He said, no. It goes back 18 months, and 18 months is a long time. And usually the ones I'm seeing in 18 months, they've got 10 A's, 6 A's, 8 A's. I mean, they're already maxed out for the very next thing. So anyway, I've talked enough. That's my feel is we give it a shot. And if we dropped it down to 3 months, would that be acceptable? And then have a serious come to Jesus meeting. We come back here and we really just, if we have to do a workshop over it, because this is really what we do. If it's not working, then we go, let's do something else.
Okay, Mr. McCollum.
I like where Lee's head is going. And, I'm trying to listen to everybody, and I can hear little bits from everybody, right? Like, we want to hold them accountable, but we also don't want them to lose hope. But this is also our job, right? So I'm with Lee. I think I don't know that 3 months is long enough. Just because when you talk about enacting new policy or law, like it's a slow turn of the ship, right? We're not going to see a big shift right away, but I would propose that we use this for now. And then with that last section, if, Ms. Wiseman or Dr. Carlos or myself or you come across something that we're like, oh, sweet baby, we have to go outside. As long as we can articulate it, then we can vote, we can make a motion and we approve it. And per their guidelines, overwhelming or substantial reasons, we have that ability. But then at the end of that look and see period, let's do a 2-day workshop. And day 1 is sitting down with TDOC, right? Because sitting down with TDOC and saying, where's your, let's see the numbers. Show us your thing is working or not working. And these are the questions we have, and these are the concerns we have. And then when we leave that meeting, we can workshop on our own and be like, okay, is anybody buying what they're selling? I mean, do we believe them, or do we want to, we can then make our own completely informed decision. So that would, I'm with you. And I just think,
I want 1 second to say this.
Okay, go ahead.
Whether TDOC follows their guidelines or not, which they're not from what we're seeing, I'm going to force them to follow the matrix.
yes,
And whether Morgan's doing it or Hardman's going, we'll do whatever we want. TDOCs will be getting hundreds of changes because their people have just said, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. I'm going to hold them accountable from February 1 is when I start. And if I've got to bring you guys 150 cases, then that's what I'm gonna do. Because that way legally and in my head, I'm just doing what we've agreed to and what you've agreed to. And if your people don't want to follow it, then that's on them. I'm gonna follow it because we've agreed to it. So that's it.
Mr.
Jerry.
Vesper.
Yeah, I just wanted, to Mr. Lindsay, I think it actually is gonna give us more oversight because we are going to be forcing people to follow their rules and regulations, which we've all seen they don't. And and I know from my experience of running the correctional facility, and visitations do mean a lot on people that have a lot of visitation. But that one guy that made a mistake, and then maybe his only write-up, well, if it was his first time, he may only lose 1 month or he may lose 2 months. And Mr. Frank here actually had one that lost 15 months, and he got a write-up in 2020, I think 5 years ago, and they took 15 months. Under the new matrix, that guy should only lost 1 or 2 months. So I think it's given that, and there are those people that make that one-time mistake. When we see those ones that continuous every month, and some of them have every week they get a class A. And I don't see, they're supposed to be in punitive segregation, and here they're getting another write-up in the same month. I would be willing, I don't mind amending the motion that we go 3 months, and I'll even, like on my cases, I will take my February cases starting in 2025, and when we get through with 3 months, I'll compare them to my 2024 cases for February, March, and April, and see what the difference is on the number of days taken from the old matrix to the new matrix. And
So are you amending your motion?
I'll amend my motion that we try it for 3 months.
Okay, do we have a second on that amendment? Well, because I don't know if we're still discussing the first motion or if we're discussing the amended motion. So I want to,
I'll second it. We
okay,
can
so
debate and
the
discuss
new
second.
motion on the floor is that we utilize TDOC's matrix for 3 months and then revisit it. So let's go ahead and discuss that now. Mr.
That leads to my question to Dr. Carpos. Being an analytic data person, going to Murtaugh, is 90 days enough to get real numbers? Is it even giving it a chance?
Yes.
And you said yes. they
Yes,
said
and
no.
here's why, and I'm intrigued by something you said, Lee. And I want to be sure I understand it, because if I understand it correctly, I certainly agree with you. That if adopted, all the board members will apply this matrix to every case and bring every case forward that does not comply with the matrix, which to our executive director means that the workbook, the spreadsheet, needs to have different categories, because we would need to identify exactly how much time was taken, how many priors exist within that 18 months, and then maybe a column for, yes, this met the matrix, no, it didn't meet the matrix. And so we will have, that's why I'm saying in 90 days, we'll know plenty, because we'll be able to have our executive director and his staff summarize those columns to identify how many of these cases were actually adjudicated in compliance with this matrix.
Okay, so I don't think, Dr. Carpos, that the results that Mr. Lindsay's talking about are they following the matrix? The results he's asking about is the new matrix
Affecting.
working? Is it affecting? Because yes, those,
Affecting what?
the inmates, like less offenses. That's the whole goal of this system, right? Is to
Just
have
from
less
a
offense,
research
yeah.
standpoint at best, that's just correlation, that's not causal. So you could, even if you looked at it for 5 years.
So
what
then-
did you just said.
Okay, so just for clarification, in 3 months, if TDOC is not following their own policy, then we increase their days? Is that?
No, that's a totally different discussion.
Okay.
That's why I said what Mr. Frank is offering is, I think, a pathway forward to being able to we observationally know that we've observed that the old matrix wasn't being followed.
Right.
Now we're going to find out.
And the zeros left you wiggle, you're like, well, that guy, his first drug offense, and
Right.
so you, in your mind, because you're like, am I gonna be bringing, because you could bring, technically probably could bring more than we do. But with this new one, the first month, if we send to the commissioner or to Michael or whoever, 742 cases that we've got to re-adjudicate, somebody's gonna hear real quickly that somebody's not following the matrix.
Yeah, I was gonna let Mr. Sherry say.
I've said it before, I don't mean to be redundant, you know, I think there's, and when we met with the folks at, Riverbend, we talked about the ecosystem, you alluded to it better, very eloquently,
Mhm.
you know, and we talked to, I don't know who was standing there, we talked to one of the counselors or a nurse and said, do you feel like you're gonna be, you know, are they gonna do something to you because you sit on this D board? And they said, no, they understand the rules. They understand it, they respect it, and we follow the rules, so. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The reason I think we should give this a try is because of that fragile ecosystem. I don't want to put correctional officers in danger. And my friends in the legislature talk about unintended consequences of legislation. And that's what I think, like Betsy says, Ms. Wiseman, that we all feel that these folks should stay, especially if they get caught with a cell phone, they should stay in there long. They should stay in prison long. But I'm worried about putting corrections officers in a bad place. But I think the idea of this matrix, we're trying to sanction, but TDOC is trying to sanction them to correct their behavior.
Mhm.
So to her point, to Ms. Murtaugh's point,
Yes.
we can give it time to see, are the A's going to go down? Are they going to, and I don't know that they will, you know, but I think it's going to take time. So that's why I worry about creating a separate matrix at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have Mr. Lindsay, and then we'll go to Ms. Murtaugh, and then we'll go to Dr. Parker. Ms. Lindsay.
This is what I will say. News travels faster on the inside than outside. People will call you from the inside and tell you, you heard such and such pass, and you're in the free world. So you have to give this new time to float around these facilities. There's a new system. That's a jailhouse incarceration of fact. I don't even know if that was proper. I said it. You have to give.
We do have to send them a letter.
You have to
There's
send
gonna
them.
be a bunch of letters. that show up.
So when one person get hit, it's like, hey, they have this new thing. Then you have the jailhouse lawyers, the guys going around. Then it does, but that's why I came with the time frame of saying not so much as will the data shows, but will it give us enough time to see a behavioral shift? As in, hey, this board and the TDOC has moved in a different direction. And I don't know if we see it in 90 days, praise the Lord, if we see it in 180. So when it came with the data, it was, both mine was behavioral, and you answered that it'll show us plenty analytically. So mine was both of those. That's all I want to see. But you do have to let the news travel through facility. It has to go through, it's a city within a city. You have to let the news, gotta let their version of the outlets and the news break and spread around and then when one person get affected, then you see it roll out. So there's our world and then there's their world, and we have to look at that from that angle.
Okay, Ms. Murtaugh?
I think from the get-go, and I think from our mission statement and the sentiment of this board from day one, when it was just three of us, is public safety. Right? So we're not only looking to keep bad actors off the streets when they don't belong there quite yet. But our criminal justice system is not just about discipline, right? It's not just about incarceration, right? There are other prongs to that. So, to Lee's point, your addict, if they're held accountable in the right way, perhaps 2 out of 100 of them leave the facility in recovery. Right? So I think, right? Like, so we're looking, and Mr. Lindsay is a prime example, right? I mean, really, we're looking at the poster child for this. So that's the end goal. We're not going to get it every time. It's going to happen. And we're not even going to know that we did it. We're not even gonna know that we did it. But at the end of the day, we've got to find that balance between holding them accountable and taking their good time, and also some type of rehabilitation, so when they do finish, right, or they stop that behavior, and that's that number, right, like 90 days, 180 days, how long is it that we're gonna give ourselves to see if the offense rate has dropped? Because at the end of the day, that's part of the public safety piece, right? We want them to stop doing what they're doing, not just punish them all the time, right? So that's where I come from, and I think, I'm gonna call it again, but I'm gonna amend it back, the motion back to 6 months.
Okay, what's actually, the chairman's motion?
Can I not amend it?
I think you'd have to bring a new motion.
Okay.
If that one fails. So you can ask him to amend it.
Oh, okay. Can you amend it back to 6 months for me?
I can amend this back to
Can I
6
finish
months.
the discussion?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is I want to make sure we're talking about the correct thing. So right now, what we're talking about is a motion that the board would utilize TDOC new matrix from the February 1st incidents forward. And the proposal is that that be revisited in 3 months. So it would be for incidents February, March, and April. I think, Ms. Murtaugh, if that is not a satisfactory,
Okay, we can leave it.
yeah,
I'll just-
motion for you, then we would vote it down and then you would bring forth your motion. So I think we're still talking about the 3 months unless the chairman really wants to amend it now, just table his motion.
I'm ready for more discussion.
Okay, so we're still on the 3 months. Okay, Dr. Carpos, and, I will say we've been talking for a little over an hour, so, just, keep that in mind. I have Dr. Carpos, anyone after Dr. Carpos? Okay, you have the floor.
I don't traditionally use the word punishment. I use the word consequence, because I think there are consequences for behavior. And I think punishment is a different type of term. So when I think about sentence credits being withdrawn, I see it as reinforcing a consequence for behavior that occurred. And in withdrawing them, and I do think awarding, denying, and withdrawing is exactly what our statute says. I think it's interesting to bring in the notion that if we decide sentence credits in a certain way, that may or may not have something to do with rehabilitation and recidivism, but those are not things in our statute. Our statute is about public safety, and it's about the recognition that someone was released having had 51 Class A's and nonetheless got out more than 4 years early. So the question wasn't about whether he'd been rehabilitated. It was about whether or not he'd been incapacitated to the full extent of his sentence. And he had not, because despite committing 51 Class A's, he was allowed to retain his sentence credits and leave more than 4 years early. So to me, the language and the statute focuses this board on how to award, deny, and withdraw sentence credits in relationship to protecting the public based on the behavior of the person. That isn't to say that following down the conversation of rehabilitation isn't important. And I think that's why we have a Department of Corrections that has $1.4 billion budget to create rehabilitative strategies. But that isn't the board's authority. And so my concern is how to focus on consistent, standardized consequences. I am certainly encouraged to hear the remarks and certainly more in favor of the proposal of seeing how this works out. But I do want to put it with a caveat. That is what Mr. Frank suggested, and that is that we actually develop the data that would help the department know which facilities and how often the matrix is being deviated from. That would not only allow us to withdraw sentence credits, albeit maybe it's not at the rate that I might think, but it's allowing the withdrawal of sentence credits in a standardized way. And we're being able in the contemporary moment, or as contemporary as the previous month, to be able to communicate that to the agency and to be able to be withdrawing those times that are in keeping with this matrix. So, the objections that I may have had earlier on, it's been a productive hour in me growing. And I'm thankful for having that opportunity of hearing everyone's different voices, and it's helped me think about this somewhat.
Great, okay. Any other discussion? Anyone else? All right, well, I think we could go ahead and maybe move to a vote on this. So the motion is that.
He's
Well,
going up as 3 months.
Yeah, so the motion would be that the board utilize TDOC's new matrix when it determines and adjudicates incidents that occurred from February 1st plus 90 days, so February, March through April 30th or 31st. I'm not sure how many cases are. And then we would revisit whether to extend that based on the data or do something else.
I think that's a good point, is that we might find out, man, this is working like gangbusters, and we just go, let's continue holding their feet to the fire, and we continue making the prisons.
Well, the
follow.
expectations after April will need to be aligned with what we do from there on. So we will be due for the February 1st cases, or at least the end of April cases, we'll be utilizing this matrix. Yes, Ms. Murtaugh.
I just wanted some clarification. Did you want something? Oh, no, I wanted some clarity on, did you just say that after the 3 months is up and we come back to the table, whatever we decide is what we're doing going forward? That the expectation will be that we will make a final decision in 3 months.
No, I did not say that.
That's what I thought, okay, that's what I thought I heard, so.
No, all I said was that following April 30th, we won't have agreed on a uniform matrix. So the expectation would be that we do have one, because right now, this motion only goes to the end of April, so.
Right, but
Cases, right.
Cases.
It'll be like May or
That's right.
June, I guess.
That's right, May, June, but.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be
We won't have a decision on those, on how we treat
The
it.
incident, February, March, April.
Yes.
Those 3 months of
Those 3 months
incidents.
worth of incidents.
right, but in 3 months, we would have to revisit it, but if we decided we needed another 3 months,
Sure.
then we could decide we needed another 3 months.
Because you won't know any results until 3 months worth of data. May and June, really.
So that's the motion. What I'd like to do, we had a lot of really good discussion on this. I'd like to do a roll call vote. Okay. I'd like to start with Ms. Wiseman. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. Dr. Carpos.
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay.
No.
Chairman Bassfider.
Yes.
Mr. Sharon.
No.
Ms. Murtaugh.
No,
Mr. Frank.
Yes.
And Mr. Carr.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
I want to recap.
Okay. That's great. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. We have been going, helpfully for an hour. We can take a break. We have one more agenda item. We can power through.
I'll just say one thing, Ms. White.
I think we could take like a
Okay.
15-minute, just a breather.
Okay, let's take a 10-minute break.
10 minutes.
Just quickly, could I
Yes.
I would like to propose that we roll the one remaining item to next month's calendar. The next month's
Well,
public
it's
meeting.
your
That's fine.
item.
Yeah, I
Ms.
just.
Wiseman. Okay. One second. Okay, so can we just have a motion?
Yes, my motion would be that, with Ms. Wiseman's permission, we roll the final agenda item to next month.
Second,
We have a second. Any discussion on that? Okay, let's do a quick vote on that. We will do by roll call. All in favor of moving the last agenda item to next month, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Okay,
move to adjourn.
okay, 1 second. We do have one item, the chairman would like to say something.
Yes, I'm listening to all the conversation and looking at some of the letters that we're receiving from inmates. And if you look up our board, like in LexisNexis, it says that we take away only good behavioral credits, when actually the law says that we can take away good behavioral and program credits. But a lot of these inmates, that's why we're getting the little notations that it says you can only take away like good credits. They're looking it up on the internet and they've got it quoted on. Tennessee law says we take all. So I don't know if we need to, I think we show on our website the actual law.
Yeah.
But if you look at LexisNexis, it says that we only can take away good credits.
Okay, we can look into that.
And,
Yes.
want to highlight, shout out to our new Tammy. Great job on this.
Yeah, we're gonna say, let's save that for 1 second. We just have one more agenda item. We do have to, give an opportunity for public comment. I don't see anyone online, but we do have a few members of the public here. Anyone in the public who'd like to, make any remarks? The public comment period is open now. Gentlemen, nobody? Okay. Then we're gonna close the public comment period. Now we'll move into closing notes. Mr. Lindsay, you wanted to commend, Ms.
Yes,
Turner?
Mrs. Turner, I'm sorry, Ms. Turner, it was just a great job when I got here. It helped me navigate through the meeting. It was thoughtful. Thankful to our executive director, everybody on this board. Your experience, your comments, I'll always leave enriched and edified. Thank you, Microsoft, for all you do. Thank you, newest member of the team, praying for our fellow board members, and it was intriguing and interesting.
Okay, wait, just 1 second. A few more closing notes. Please leave your binders. Please leave your notebooks.
And your
Okay?
name tag.
And your name tags. We're gonna reuse those. I know people, in the past, I've given them to you, but, Ms. Turner is gonna take some of her time to collect them. So, just leave those. Also, yes, please let's keep, Mike Dunn and Vice Chairman in our prayers and hearts. I know he would appreciate if anyone wanted to reach out and just let me know that we're thinking of him. I will work on, sending some flowers for those personal reasons as well, so you'll be hearing from me. Those are all my notes. Does anyone have any other closing notes before we do officially adjourn? Okay, I will turn it over to the chairman to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. All those in favor, we are adjourned.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
That's